Welcome to our Gemara Shir, Gemara Straight and Simple Gemara. We're learning Maseches Shabbos, and today we're going to finish one perek, the Kuf Mem Gimel Omud Aleph in the bottom of the page. Yeah, finishing the perek of Noita Lodam Es B'noi, and we're going to start in, I believe, a few minutes, the new perek, Perek Chovis, the 22nd perek. Yeah. The topic or the today's topic is muktzeh, particularly animal food. We're talking here about, as we started to speak about yesterday, tmorim. You have dates. Those dates have obviously pits in them. You eat the tmorim. What do you do with the pits? What do you do with the garinim? The pits that are there. It's not so simple because these pits are sometimes may be good for animals as animal food, not so liked by animals apparently, but some animals may eat it sometimes, as we're going to see later. And therefore, when you're stuck with animal food in your hand, so again, is it muktzah or not? You're the date, you ate the date, matov manoim, very nice. I hope you said bor priyet. Now at the end of the day, you're stuck with the bad stuff. That's gashmius. You start good and then you end up bad. Yeah, it's oil. So now you end up with a pit in your hand. Are you allowed to carry it, to take it, to move it? Yes, no. Play chess with it. So then that's going to be the discussion now. Yeah, it's human food that turned into animal food because all you have is the pit. And this year is Le'ilun Nishmas, my father Menachem and Akiva, Le'ilun Nishmas so Bas Moshe. Your site will be next week. And for the Hatzlacha and Hatzala of all the Klal Yisrael, especially the hostages. Be'ezras Hashem. Says the Heilige Gemara, Hani Gar'in in the Tamri. Yeah, we're about 10 or so lines from the bottom of the page. Line starts with the word Yomus. Hani Gar'in in the Tamri al Maisa. The Gemara differentiates between two types of Tmorim, two types of dates. The Aramaic one, which I think means from Syria, and the Persian one. Hani Gar'in in the Tamri al Maisa. The Gar'inim, the pits that come from the Syrian dates, Sharum L'Tiltulinu. You're allowed to carry them. Everyone agrees you're allowed to carry them. Why? Oil v'chazian agav iman, which means, what's chazian agav iman? The dates themselves, the Aramaic ones, the Syrian ones, are not so good to begin with. Human beings may eat them, but they're definitely very good for animals as well, right? In other words, it's more likely you'll feed it to the animal. And therefore, when Shabbos came in, what was the story? They're ready agav iman. What does it mean agav iman? Agav means on top of, together, like taking a ride. Since those tmorim were what? Were meant to begin with for animals, and the pit was also meant for animals. Good. When Shabbos came in, that's the most important moment. Yeah? What was the whole package? Both the flesh of the fruit and the pit for animals. Now it's separate. Who cares it's separate? You're separating A from B. And therefore, you're allowed to move it. You're allowed to carry it around, no problem. By the way, if you are in the business, who are we talking? According to who are we? What kind of sprach of talk do we have over here? Do we sound more like Rabbi Yehuda or more like Rabbi Shimon? More like Rabbi Yehuda. Because Rabbi Shimon doesn't care. Rabbi Shimon says even if in the middle of Shabbos, human food turned into animal food, or you decided to change its destiny, it's okay. Rabbi Yehuda is the one who says no. You can't change human food to animal food in the middle. Therefore, says Rabbi Yehuda, next case, the pasioso osu, two words, the pasioso osu. What's the pasioso osu? If you are eating nice Persian dates, they are nice and yummy and fleshy and plumpy, and you eat them and they're meant for human beings. And when Shabbos came in, you had in your mind, you're fantasizing about what you're going to have these nice dates for human beings. And now what? You ate them. Now you're stuck with animal food. That's a problem. Because they started off as human food, now they're animal food. The animal food also, who's talking here? Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, you can't change it, you can't turn it around, and therefore don't carry them. There's no way. There is another explanation, which we will discuss later, okay? But this is one solid explanation. So what was the solution? What are you supposed to do? Spit it out of your mouth? Maybe. Let's see. We're going to see different solutions by different Amoraim because Tmorim were very common in Bavel. Yeah, it says most of the food was in Bavel was Tmorim, very very common to eat dates. So now, what did they do? How did they deal with the problem? Shmuel metaltalu agav rifta. Shmuel would take some bread and carry them together with the bread. Yeah, take the bread together. The bread would be like a tray for the pits of the for the date pits, and he would carry it together. Shanam shapaz siman. Shmuel time the Omar. Shmuel is following his own reason. The Omar Shmuel oisodem called solkoi bepas. Shmuel says a person is allowed to use bread for his own needs. What does that mean? So first of all, there's a lot going on here, but first let's start from the end, which means we're learning here again Hilchas Baltashchis or Hilchas, Derech Eretz Basauda, which means if you have bread and you want to use it for functional use, that's okay. In other words, as long as you're not mvazeh the pas, as long as you don't treat the pas badly, you don't step on it, or you don't use it, you don't make it disgusting. That it says in Shulchan Aruch, don't pass a glass of water over the bread because it may spill and the bread will be disgusting, very soggy. Don't do that. Treat your bread with respect. But if you want to use the bread as a tray for something that's not so disgusting, I guess those pits are not so bad. I don't know. Yeah, good for the animals, for later, for something, you can use it. Yeah, you're allowed to use bread. Or, nowadays they have this thing that the bread is like the soup bowl. They have it right in some places. So that's okay. That's okay. Because it's still yummy, it's good, it's the bread is fine, it's used for something else. That much you don't have to give covet to the bread. Now, however, listen to what's going on here. There is a problem here. There's a big problem in this Gemara. If you're telling me that we follow Rabbi Yehuda, and those pits of the stones, we call them stones, the pits of the dates are what? Mukta. If so, how come you're allowed to move it with a pat? We never heard such a thing, right? Yeah, it's only allowed to move mukta through something else. Yeah, to all of a sudden, it wasn't a bosses before. It's not a, yeah, bosses is only lister, not leheter. So therefore, we have to now change everything and say, and that's what Shulchan Aruch says. Shulchan Aruch says we're talking according to Rab Shimon. If it's Rab Shimon, what's the problem? According to Rab Shimon, this is not muktzah, gesundheit. Why do you need to use the pot? Just take it with your own bare hands and move them. Even because we're talking according to Rab Shimon. Says the Shulchan Aruch, no. Shmuel and all the other Ameroim that we're going to see each one use the different trick, they were choshev people. They were people that people would look up to and use as an example. And therefore, because, as I said before, Tmorim pits, Garine Tmorim are not prime property, not prime food for animals. Yeah, as it says Shulchan Aruch. It's not so liked by animals. It's like a b'di'evid. Yeah, it's like, you feed your child spinach, lettuce. So therefore, because it's not so glut and not everyone sees it as animal food, some people, Tom, Dick, and Harry, and Shmuel, Beresh, Peril, they think this may be muktzah. So that's why the Chachamim were a little bit more detached from it, and instead of moving it beyadayim, they moved it in a indirect way. That's why. Okay, that's why they did it. Okay, so really we're following here Rav Shimon. Now, Rabba metaltalu agav likna demaya. Rabba would carry those garinim, those pits of the dates, together with a bowl of sefer, whatever, a jug, a mug of a cup of water. Now, that's another question. The problem is, why did he do it indirectly? Because it's a Reb Shimon and he's taking extra precaution. Bad news. Why it's bad news? Rabbi is the one who said before that he follows Rabbi Yehuda, so he can't follow Reb Shimon. If you follow Rabbi Yehuda, and this is real muktzah, how does it help if you move it indirectly? Answers Tosfos an interesting yesod, and he says because Tmorim, this is a kula in Rabbi Yehuda. In Rabbi Shimon it's a chumah, in Rabbi Yehuda it's a kula. Why is Rabbi Yehuda make her to move it indirectly all of a sudden? You know why? Because Tmorim, you had no choice. What do you want me to do? This muktzah will always happen. You can't tell me not to eat dates on Shabbos. Every time I'll eat dates, at the end of the day, I'll end up with a pit. And therefore, because there is no other choice, therefore Rabbi Yehuda allowed you to do it, albeit with a shinui, with the likna demaya. That's Tosfos. Ravuna Beit Rav Yeshua, more solutions. Ravuna Beit Rav Yeshua, Avid Lu Kegav Shel Rei. Oh, there was another solution. He just kept, spitting it or putting it together, one next to the other, until what? Until they created a big pile, like Garinim. The Israelis, Leil Shabbos, yeah, your kids do it. I don't know. Yeah, so then, in my house, I don't allow it hardly. Yeah, so then the graf shel rei is created. What's graf shel rei? Graf shel rei means a disgusting item, something that's really disgusting, gross. We saw it in Daf Mem Zayin, Kuf Kaf Aleph, and other places. Something so bad you're allowed to remove. They created one by one a whole graf shel rei, a gesunte pile of those pits. Now they are crowned as graf shel rei. Graf shel rei literally means like dirt, like a pot of dirt. And therefore, once it's Gav Shalei, there's a special Kula Darabani allowed to move it out. Ravashi does not like that solution, and he's asking Ameima, V'chioisin Gav Shalei, Lechatchila, are you allowed to make a Gav Shalei to begin with? Which that's halacha. You're not allowed to create a Gav Shalei. Meaning, unless you throw everything in the garbage, because that's the place, don't trick the system, but putting a lot of muktzas together, a whole pile, so it should be so gross, it would be gaf shalei. He did do it, yeah, Ravuna Bar Rav Yeshua, but halacha says not like that, and therefore we have to find other solutions. Rav Sheshes darik lu belishnei. Rav Sheshes would throw them, would spit them with his mouth, with his tongue, lishnet, to the other side of the table. Yeah, to the other side of the table. And just when you throw it, I'm sorry for the demonstration, but if you just spit it out to the other side, that's allowed. You're not moving them with your hands. You're allowed to move muktzah with your elbows, with your feet, and with your tongue. Rav Papa. Rav Papa is zarik lo choira amita. Rav Papa would throw them behind his bed. Why? Because this way he's avoiding. I remember one of the Rishonim saying it. I don't remember who, that you're avoiding Rav Shalei. If it's behind the bed, they used to eat on beds. Would have small tables and eat on a bed. So when you throw it behind you, behind the bed, what happens then? There's no Rav Shalei because it's not visible. Nobody sees it. Nobody cares about it. Motzei Shabbos, take it and give it to the animal, or throw it away, or recycle it. Amr Olav ben Abizchai ben Avkulas, shemachzir ponav v'chor amita v'zokon. Rabbi ben Avkulas would follow Rav Papa, and maybe he didn't want to, I don't know, make people feel uncomfortable. He would turn his back, turn his face, and then throw it behind the bed. Okay? So why did they do it in such a mishunadik way, in a crazy way? Either they hold like Rav Yehuda and they are makel to move it, yeah. Actually, if you follow Rav Yehuda, you either do it b'shinui or you do it with no hands, with your mouth. That's okay. Or they had like Rab Shimon, which we hold by la halacha, and they said we're allowed to move it with our hands because this is good animal food, and animal food on Shabbos you can move, even if it started off differently. They're just taking an extra chumrah because a big Talmid Chachamim, everyone follows them. They want to be more. They don't look even as if doing an avera. And Tamarim are a little bit questionable, so they said on the safe side, we're going to just move it in an indirect way. Hadon lachnot alodon esbnoim mazel tov. And we're on to the 22nd perek. Okay.
Amen.
Our perek deals with a lot of Isur de Rabbanon to do with food, and the first Mishnah deals with a few Isurim. One of them is one of the major Isurim that are mentioned in Chovis is the prohibition of schita, of squeezing, yeah, which is mefarek, which is a tolda of dash. You're not allowed to squeeze fruit on Shabbos for the juice. Could be sometimes, many times it's an Issa Doraisa, sometimes Issa Dorabanan, as we're going to see. So let's just dive into the barrel of Torah, Chovis. So Kuf Mem Gimel Omud Beis, that's where Chovis is. Says the Heilige Mishnah. Chovis Shet Nishbera, yeah, that's the Chovis that broke on Shabbos, and the wine is dripping mamish dripping or gushing out. The wine is coming out. Terrible loss. The guy has a lot of wine in the barrel. The barrel is broken. Now the wine is coming out, and he needs to save the wine. There is a limitation on how much he can save. Which means if you have one big barrel, great, there's no limitation. In other words, if you have the chavis and you are quick and you have an empty barrel, and you now empty from the broken one, you just stand there with a with the empty one, and one is spilling, pouring into the other, great, no problem. The problem is what happens when you don't have one kli that's big enough, and the kli is what? Well, you need more than one. Yeah, you have whole gallon, I don't know the whole thing, and you have smaller kalim. When you have to start bringing smaller kalim, like many little kalim to contain the whole chavis, all the wine, there is a concern. This is taking us back to Daf Kuf Yud Zayin Amud Beis. There's a concern over there for what? You may come and bring more kalim through Rosh Hashanah. Your wine is so expensive, so chosh, we're going to lose your head. You're going to start screaming at everyone, come, children. Yeah, my wife, my neighbor, my this. Bring more and more kalim. You're going to lose it, kind of. And you may bring kalim in the middle of where? Through Rosh Hashanah. It's a doaisa. Therefore, there's a limitation. Chacham and Chatchila told you, and this is something you should always know, if Chalila, such a thing happens, you're only allowed to save 3 meals, enough wine for 3 meals. Yeah, for, I don't know, your family, not more. What does that remind us? A house on fire. Same thing, remember? In Kol Kisvei, Kuf Tedvav, Kuf Tedzayin, Kuf Yudzayin, if Chas v'Shalom there's fire in the house, you're limited, and you, Baruch Hashem, the family ran out of the fire, and stuff is burning, or sakana being burnt, you're allowed to take out how many? Only food keneged shalosh sudas, not more, because you may come to extinguish the fire. Here too, there's a limitation. Don't lose your head. It's limited, so don't start bringing kalim from all over the world, including Rosh Hashanah. However, there is an extra kula. He tells other people, other friends, go and save for yourselves. So a lot of wine is being saved. He's telling Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Issachar, Zvulun, Shprinta, Bela, and everybody, go save yourselves wine, and then either they'll get the wine, the Gemara discussed it before, or they'll give it back to him, the chule, payment, not payment, that's not the issue now. But the Maisa, each family can have 3 meals. Wine, yeah, the quota of 3 meals, not more than that. There is a limitation. Ubilvad, one thing you have to make sure you don't do, Shala Yispog, don't use a sponge and don't, well, when you move the wine from one barrel to the other, make sure you don't use the sponge, as Rashi. You have to read this Rashi inside. There's a lot of bit of an ekudas iyun over here. Look at Rashi. Shelo yasim sfog bimkom hayayin lachzor latifu bekli. Don't take the sponge and get it all full of wine and then move it to the other barrel. Yeah, and in order to let it drip into the kli, into the new kli, into the empty one, gzeira shema yischot. There's a gzeira you may come to squeeze. Yeah, this Rashi is very difficult because we said you're using a sfog. What do you mean? Rashi says maybe you'll come to squeeze. I understand that you're like moving the sfog softly, right? Okay, you're not coming to squeeze. Yeah, you're just moving the wine from one barrel, which is breaking into the empty barrel. Just make sure, says Rashi, don't do it. Why? Or yes, you can actually don't do it because you may come to squeeze. What do you mean? We learned yesterday, right? In the previous Mishnah, the last Mishnah of the previous perek, there was less than an abud ago at that spoke the psikresha, right? It's not you may come to do it on purpose. Here Rashi says, Gzera Shema, maybe you'll come to squeeze. No, it's not maybe. It's a very difficult Rashi, right? Yeah, you agree. You like good questions, Akiva, right? So, yeah. So here Rashi says, maybe you'll come to be Seichet. And before he said no. Now he said, the Gemara said it's a psikresh. It's a question on Rashi. Let's look at Tosfos. Says Tosfos, really a different solution. Look at Tosfos. V'lvad shelo ispoig. First Tosfos in the page. Afilu yesh lo or beis achiza. Says Tosfos, remember what he said yesterday? If the sponge has a handle, a leather handle, That's a safe one, which usually I am allowed to use, right? Because I'm using the handle, I'm not touching the sfog holding it, the grip on the sfog which squeezes it. I have an upper or piece of leather. The leka chashash schita. There's no chashash of squeezing. It's still also why. In other words, Tosis is making a new case. It's not a sponge, it's just bare sponge. It's a sponge with leather on top. Even that's not allowed. That kind of sponge we said before is okay to clear the table. But this one is not allowed. But to clear the wine, the good, nice wine from one barrel to the other, that's not allowed. Why? Oh, you shouldn't do. The Gemara will tell us later. It's an uvda dechol. Yeah, uvda dechol means don't do things in a way that's too professional or in a way that's too doimet to iser. That's like a very normal way to do it. Beiser, even certain activities that are not Shabbosdik, not eating, sleeping, learning, or I don't know, your wife. Yeah, it's something out of the ordinary to start arranging the wine. It's mix of, I just saw it now again in Shin Chesed Akdama. Shabbos is not supposed to be a day you start arranging and moving, and it's not your day to be misader your storage room, yeah, your machsan. So too, and if you do it b'shinui. Yeah, so using a sponge is too normal. You have to do it b'shinui because otherwise it's over the chol. So I understand. Rashi remains shver. As what? Shmutar what? Mutar bet achiza. There was there was not over the chol because that's time cleaning the table. Clearing the table is yalla chevre. לנקות את השולחן וללכת לישון. It's not like I'm starting a whole arranging thing. I'm just clearing garbage. It's not called uvda dechol. Uvda dechol is something more choshu, more creative. Now listen. How do you understand Rashi? Huh? Says of some sofer something very nice. I mean, everything he says is nice. Says of some sofer to answer Rashi. He answers a different question, but through that, this question is also being answered. Says Rashi. It says some sofer in Rashi. Even Rashi would also tell you that if there is a sponge, even if there's a leather piece, there's a handle, right? Here there's a problem, not because of the chol, because shema yischot. What do you mean? When you clear the table, there's no chashash shema yischot if there's a handle. And here, if there's a handle, there is a chashash you may come to squeeze out. Why? Says some Sefer, of course, there's a huge difference. When you clear the table, you clear it from garbage, trash, zevel, right? You don't want the zevel. What are you clearing? All the disgusting, right, pools of Coke and Sprite, and right, and your grandchildren's materna. You're not going to squeeze them on purpose, right? So if it's not psikresha, you're clearly not that interested in squeezing them, right? Here, what am I dealing with? Oh, my fancy Chardonnay wine, my fancy Barkan, whatever, the fanciest wine around, right? The Emerald Riesling. Of course, I have a big Yetzer Hara to squeeze it into the new one, into the new Kli. Therefore, here, even if you have a handle and it's not psikresha, we're still concerned with your Yetzer Hara, and Yetzer Hara would say, oh, give it a squeeze. Because then you're going to do it on Motzei Shabbos, to do it now already. Therefore, here there's a chashash. You see, Goines some Sefer, born in Germany and moved to Hungary. Weiter. So, yeah, fine, yeah. Weiter. Says the Gemara weiter, the Mishnah. Oh, here comes the main story. En sochten esaperes loitzimen mashkin. One is not allowed to, what? To squeeze peres, to squeeze fruit, in order to extract the liquids from them. Basically, don't squeeze. I'm not giving examples on purpose. Yeah, I always like to give examples. I'm not telling you if it's oranges or zeisim vanovim or papaya, whatever the fruit is. We're going to discuss it later. Some fruit, if you squeeze them, it's an Issa Doraisa. Some of them is an Issa Dorabanan. We know what's the Isser. The Isser is Toichet, is Mefarek. Mefarek is Dash. Dash is one of the Avos Malacha. What's Dash? Whenever you take something out of its place of origin, it's Dash, such as milking a cow. According to most opinions, you milk a cow, yeah, the milk is in the udder. You squeeze it out, that's Dash. Sometimes peeling can be Dash, depends, Shaila, yeah. You're taking it out of its place where it's surrounded by, that's in general, that's called Dash, okay? And therefore, you don't do that on Shabbos. However, here comes the big machloikes. Asurin. What does that mean? How about if I have nice fruit on Shabbos? I'm not giving examples again. And these these fruit are sitting on your kitchen counter. They're so ripe and so, full, so juicy. The juice starts oozing out. The juice by itself starts, running out of the fruit. Am I allowed to take nice juice, nice, good juice? It's all clean and nice and good. Am I allowed to take a lick? Am I allowed to, it starts flowing by itself out of the fruit? Yeah, I'm not allowed to drink the juice that came by itself. Why? Says Rashi, "Gzer shamischot lekatchila." I'm gonna get a liking for it. Yeah, it's Shabbos, and I want my nice whichever fruit. Let's say wine. Let's say grape juice. Okay, but that's one case. If that's grape juice, and I'm taking out the grape juice, I'm not taking out. I'm not squeezing it. HaKadosh Baruch Hu squeezed it. It starts coming out by itself. Sometimes when you break this so ripe, this already, they break open and the thing starts flowing slowly. If I start licking and taking it, the next thing I may do is squeezing. I like it so much, I may come to squeeze. I'm gonna now basically break the border, and that's also. Yeah, therefore it's also to take even from the fruit that are oozing the juice by themselves. That's the Nakama. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, no. Says Rabbi Yehuda, depends. Says Rabbi Yehuda, I don't always agree with the Chachamim. Im la'oichlin hayotzamen mutar. If you designated these fruits, it's not grapes, doesn't matter. If those fruit were designated for food, meaning why did I get those fruit into my kitchen? Am I interested in eating them eventually, or putting them in a ninja in the the fruit squeezer, the fruit how do you call it? It's a ninja, yeah, in order to make my diet shake. What's my idea? If I bought them in order to eat them as solid food, muto. I then what came out by itself, I'm allowed to drink because I don't have the Yetzer Hara to squeeze those fruit because those fruit I bought in the supermarket in order to eat solid. So I'm not going to come to squeeze them. That wasn't my idea, my goal. However, if my idea was to squeeze, I bought them originally. I bought those fruit in order to squeeze them into juice. Therefore, what's the story then? If the water, not the water, the juice came out by itself, don't drink it because the fruit are there in order to be squeezed. You may come to squeeze them to bring them to the destiny, and therefore it's also. Yeah, we're going to discuss this machlokes extensively in the Gemara. I don't know if today, but that is the story. So again, let's summarize. According to Tanakama, regardless to what, where, who, and how, if you have fruit, I don't care why you have this fruit here on your kitchen counter, and the juice starts to, ooze out and spill out, don't touch, don't drink, muktzeh. Why? Because if you drink the juice, you may come to squeeze the fruit. Rabbi Yehuda says depends. Depends why the fruit are over there. If they're there for food, originally they're meant, you bought them, you got them, you raised them, you grew them for solid, to be eaten solid, then we don't have such a chashash. Because you never had your mind, yeah? You never set your mind on squeezing them, you won't come to squeeze them, even if the juice that they ooze out is very yummy. That's Rabbi Yehuda. Chalos dvash, last case, chalos dvash sheriskan me'erev Shabbos. What's chalos dvash? Honeycomb. Yeah, the honey, the bees produce it in like a honeycomb. That's what's called chalos dvash. And you already crushed it on Erev Shabbos. Now, the crushing is what's also Midoraisa. It's like squeezing out. Yeah? Sheriskan Erev Shabbos, v'yotzu me'atzman asurin. So now, even though you started already the process of the risuk, and now the honey starts flowing out, then it is not allowed. Don't drink that honey, don't eat the honey. You may come to squeeze them further, or you may come to squeeze other ones next Shabbos. In other words, Chachamim say, let's say next Shabbos, or other ones that are not merusak. Let's say other honeycombs that are intact, nice, solid. You're gonna halak the honey so much you'll forget yourself. You'll come to squeeze and crush the other honeycombs, which is an Issa Doraisa. Imam is crushing them for the first time. Therefore, don't do it. Don't start. Rabbi Lezer matir. Rabbi Lezer does allow them. Why? Rabbi Lezer says because it flows by itself. They're already crushed. I'm not doing anything also here. And he's not concerned that maybe I'll come to do something else for the other honeycomb. He's not concerned. There are other explanations, but that's a solid explanation. Zog the Gemara. Tana. Lo yispok beyain. Oh, you're not allowed to use sponge in order to move the wine. V'lo yitapeach b'shemen. What's lo yitapeach b'shemen? Meaning, don't, l'tapeach means like this. Look, let's say that's a kli, yeah, and I take some honey or oil, whatever, and I go like this, yeah. I'm going like to clean, like to rub my hand against it in order to let it fall into the new kli. Don't do that. Why? Shelo yaseh kederech shelo yaseh b'chol. It's very interesting. It's uvda dechol. What's uvda dechol? Oh, according to Tosfos that we saw before, also the sponge is only uvda dechol, right? According to Tosfos, the reason you can't use the sponge with the leather piece is with a handle is because of uvda dechol. It has a leather piece, and we're not concerned you'll come to squeeze it. It's just an uvda dechol. It's too professional, too perfect, too good, too whole style, not Shabbos dik. According to Rashi, the uvda b'chol only goes on what? On the shemen. On going like this, that's too much an uvda b'chol. But the wine is not because of uvda b'chol. The wine is because you may come to squeeze it. That's what some Sefer explains. Tana. Oh, here we have a very, very interesting halacha, which is to do indirectly with the malacha of me'amer, to do a little bit also the chavis. What did we speak about in the Mishnah? Chavis that broke. What about a fruit basket and whoa, boom, all the pears from the basket, all the fruit from the basket, somebody tipped the basket and it all fell all over the place. Now, you tell me, what's the malacha? How do you call the malacha of collecting fruit on Shabbos in a way that's also, remember? Me'amer. Me'amer to gather. Le'amer is one of the malachas. We discussed it, I think, first time in Daf Ayin Gimel Amud Beis in the bottom of the page. B'chokes by Rav about salt. If you're allowed to be me'amer salt, which you are. So me'amer only applies to gidule karka, to organic things, fruit, vegetables, and I don't know, cereals, and only in the place where they grow. In other words, you're in the field, you're in the orchard, the pardes, orchard of oranges, and they're all over the floor. They fell off the trees. You're not allowed to arrange them into a pile, and that's an isel d'oraisa. You're not allowed to do that. Why? Me'amer means to gather them in order to prepare them for the next stage. That's Agdol of Me'amer. Once they arrived in your house, once the oranges made a very, very long way, and you bought some oranges in Rami Levi or Carrefour or wherever, Isharad, now you have the oranges in your kitchen and they're spilled all over. Now there's no Isodor of Me'amer. Me'amer is only the place of growth, yeah, where they originally come from. And I explained to you why in one sentence. Because I remember once learning it, and that was a Havana. Me'amer means to get them from point A to B. Now in my house, they've been through point A, B months ago. Yeah, I'm just rearranging them again. I'm not now preparing them for Disha for the next stage. However, sometimes there is a problem that's similar to Ma'amer, but midarabonon. Let's see what the problem is. Says the Braisa. Nispazer leperos b'chotzer. A person has many fruit that, or not so many fruit, some fruit scattered all over the courtyard, the chotzer, the garden. Melakit al yad ve'oichel. You're allowed to collect one by one and eat them one by one. Avalol letoch hasal v'lo letoch hakupa. Wow. You're not allowed to gather all of them into the basket or into the box. Why? It's not me'amer. Shelo yaseh kederech shelo yaseh b'chol. Uvda dechol. That's the name of the game. Meaning, so what's pshat? What's going on here? I'll surprise you. There seems to be quite an open contradiction in Shulchan Aruch. One place it says it's osir, in another place it says it's mutter. That's first. Yeah. No, there are differences. I really should have brought the original Shulchan Aruch. Maybe for Sunday, maybe bring Mishnah Berurah, Chela Gimel. Okay, you bring it from home. So now, the story is like this: when the fruit is in the chotzer, yeah, in the courtyard, and you're collecting them into a basket, these are two strikes against you. It's in the chotzer, which is similar to a field. Mm. It's outdoor chotzer. Yeah, like people have, back gardens, backyards. A lot of people here have it. And also, you're collecting it more professionally into a basket. That is similar to me'amel. It's similar to what you do in the field. That's like a professionally way. Yeah, it reminds us too much of the big, bad, scary me'amel, and therefore don't do it. Masha'en Ken, the other Shulchan Aruch, maybe we'll read it on Sunday, he says in the bait. Bait means indoors. Indoors is not outdoors. If it's indoors, and also in the other place, it does say sal. If it's indoors and or you're not using a basket, you're just collecting them and they stay on the floor, then there is a tzad to say it's okay. It's a big discussion in the Achronim if you need both strikes or one or two, but we're going to discuss it later. But the idea is basically, for sure, when you have two disadvantages, it's outdoors, so it's similar to the field, even though it's not the field, it's not where it grew. And also, you're doing it in a basket, which is more, also looks like a field, into the basket. That's so bad, it's so professionally looking. Therefore, don't do it on Shabbos, even though it is in your house and it's way past the original growth in the field. Okay? And that's halacha. I mean, in general. Weiter. We may go back to that on Sunday in the Shulchan Aruch. I hope so. I'm not sure. And Tzorchten Esaperos. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Mashmuel. Moed Oher Rabbi Yehuda lechachomim. Rabbi Yehuda agrees to chachomim bezeisim va'anovim. Oh, let's give a little introduction. And I checked this online just to see if the reality changed. It did not change, which means Zeisim va'anovim, my friends, 2025 news. Yeah, AI told me today. He also gave me smileys and told me Shabbat Shalom. He's a from AI I have. The kids, sir, the AI told me that most grapes today in the world are used for wine. Only the minority are used for actually for being eaten as solid grapes. Oil even more. 90% of olives in the world are for oil. Only 10% are to be consumed. And that's what all the Arab workers they eat olives all day long. So now, so Zeisim va'anovim, yeah, Zeisim va'anovim are used mostly for juice. And a person had this like Yetzer Hara and thought that will be good wine, good grape juice, or good oil, right? That's Zeisim va'anovim. You have other fruit which some people use for juice and some don't. It's kind of somewhere in the middle. And some fruit people never use for juice. There are three levels, okay? So far, at the beginning, the Gemara will differentiate between Zeisim va'anovim and the other fruit. Zeisim va'anovim, first of all, by the way, there's another point here. I think it's a different opinions in the Rishonim. Zeisim va'anovim, first of all, reality shows us Zeisim va'anovim are used mainly for juice, wine, oil, whatever you call it, for the liquid, and therefore we're going to treat them more b'chumrah. We tend to say that if it starts oozing up, you may come to squeeze it. Secondly, zeisim vanovim halachically and eshkafically, it's a choshev v'mashke, right? They belong to the seven halachic mashke, miyad shachat dam, right? The only ones that come there from fruit are, right, yain and shemen. The other one are like dvash, chalav, whatever, all kind of blood. Oh, so they are very choshev, yain and shemen. And therefore, we're going to now set them apart from all other mashkim. So says the Gemara, we don't have much time. Even Rabbi Yehuda, the lenient one. What did Rabbi Yehuda say in the Mishnah? That in many cases, if you leave the fruit in order to be eaten, yeah, and then the juice came out, you can have the juice because you bought them in order to eat them solid. So you're not going to come to squeeze them. Yes, nice. When it comes to Zeisim va'anovim, Rabbi Yehuda, in that exceptional case, of Zeisim va'anovim, olives and grapes, here Rabbi Yehuda agrees that Zeisim va'anovim are different, and you should always be careful and not consume the liquid that comes out of them on Shabbos. My time, why? Kevin de l'schita ninhu. Oh, because most of them are for schita, right? Even though you, Mister, you use them for oichlin, you want them to eat the grapes or to eat the olives, you are the minority, you are the 10%. By grapes, it's a bit better. It's about 60, 70% for juice, for wine. Still, because you're the odd one out, they're meant for schita, yaiv daite. At the end of the day, once you see nice juice, nice grape juice, nice oil, you may come to squeeze them. And belong to the majority that uses them for oil. And that's why it's also. The Ula Omar, Ula quoting Rav, arguing when Shmuel says no. Rabbi Yehuda also disagrees when it comes to Zeisim va'anovim. He is a hardliner. He says it's always allowed. Even Zeisim va'anovim, says Rashi, because you want them for solids, so you go against the majority. You're the minority. And therefore, if you want them in order to eat them, you're not going to come to squeeze them. We don't have time, unfortunately. We're squeezed for time. So Bezos Hashem, we will continue loud and clear. Bezos Hashem on Sunday, I hope, yeah? And the entire week. We will be zoiche to be Shlomo Shabbos Kilchoso. Thank you very much to Torah Anytime and all its beautiful people. Hatzlacha